The chlorine-scented air hit me like a punch, sharp and familiar, as I pushed through the gate of the Willow Creek community pool. My best friend, Ethan, was already there, his lean frame cutting through the water like a knife. Every stroke a quiet rebellion against the world that tried to box him in. I stood frozen, my heart pounding, knowing today was the day I'd finally tell him I loved him and that I'd loved him since we were kids chasing fireflies in his backyard. It was the summer of 2023, and Willow Creek, a sleepy suburb in upstate New York, felt like it was holding its breath. Ethan and I had been inseparable since we were 10, two white kids from middle-class families, our lives woven together by late-night talks, shared secrets, and the kind of trust that felt unbreakable. But lately, every glance he threw my way, those piercing blue eyes, that crooked smile lit a fire in me I couldn't ignore. I, Lucas Bennett, was 24, a graphic designer with a knack for overthinking, and I was about to risk our friendship for something more. The pool was nearly empty, just a few kids splashing in the shallow end and a lifeguard scrolling on her phone. Ethan climbed out, water streaming down his shoulders, his swim trunks clinging to him in a way that made my mouth go dry. "Luke, you gonna stand there all day or get in?" he teased, shaking his head like a dog, spraying droplets everywhere. I laughed, trying to mask the nervous tremor in my voice, and tossed my towel on a chair. This was it. I'd tell him before the day was over. I had to. We swam laps together, our strokes syncing like they always did, a rhythm we'd built over years. But every time our hands brushed underwater, my pulse spiked. I was drowning in him, not the water. After an hour, we sprawled on a bench by the pool, the sun warming our skin. I opened my mouth to speak, to finally say the words, "Ethan, I'm in love with you," when the gate creaked open. A man walked in, tall, broad-shouldered, with a jawline sharp enough to cut glass and eyes that scanned the pool like he owned it. He was white, maybe in his early 30s, with a confidence that screamed money and power. His presence shifted the air, like a storm cloud rolling over a clear sky. Ethan's smile faltered, and I felt a chill that had nothing to do with the water drying on my skin. "Who's that?" I whispered, nudging Ethan. He shrugged, but his eyes didn't leave the stranger. The man dropped his bag by a lounge chair, stripped off his shirt, and dove into the deep end with a grace that made the kids stop splashing to stare. Something about him felt off. Not dangerous, exactly, but like he was carrying a secret that could unravel everything. We tried to go back to our conversation, but the stranger's presence lingered. He swam with purpose, his strokes powerful, almost aggressive. When he finally climbed out, he looked straight at us now, at Ethan. "Nice day for a swim," he said, his voice smooth but with an edge I couldn't place. Ethan nodded, polite but guarded. "Yeah, it's perfect," he said, his tone clipped. The stranger smiled, but it didn't reach his eyes. "Name's Caleb," he said, extending a hand. Ethan shook it, but I noticed his grip was tighter than usual. "Ethan, this is Lucas," he said, gesturing to me. Caleb's gaze flicked to me, then back to Ethan, like I was an afterthought. "You two come here often?" Caleb asked, settling onto a chair nearby, too close for comfort. "Every summer," I said, forcing a smile. I wanted him gone. This was supposed to be our moment, not some intruder's stage. But Caleb leaned back, his eyes locked on Ethan, and started asking questions: where we grew up, what we did for a living, if we were just friends. The way he said it, like he was testing the waters, made my stomach twist. Ethan answered vaguely, but I could tell he was unsettled too. As the sun dipped lower, Caleb's questions grew bolder. "Ever think about leaving this place?" he asked Ethan, ignoring me entirely. "A guy like you could do big things. You don't belong in a small town like this." Ethan laughed it off, but I saw the flicker of curiosity in his eyes. I knew that Luke got it when he was dreaming of something bigger, something beyond Willow Creek. My heart sank. I'd spent years building up the courage to confess. And now this stranger was waltzing in, threatening to steal the moment and maybe Ethan away. By the time we left the pool, the air between us felt heavy. Ethan was quiet, his usual chatter replaced by a distant look. "You okay?" I asked as we walked to his car. He nodded, but it was a lie, and we both knew it. Caleb had planted something in him, a seed of doubt or desire I couldn't name. As I watched Ethan drive away, I realized this wasn't just about my confession anymore. Something bigger was coming, and it scared me to death. The next day, I couldn't shake the image of Caleb's smug smile or the way Ethan's eyes had lingered on him. I told myself it was nothing, that Ethan was still the same guy who'd shared his lunch with me in middle school when I forgot mine. But doubt gnawed at me, sharp and relentless, as I walked back to the pool, hoping to recapture what we'd lost yesterday. Ethan was already there, sitting on the same bench, his sketchbook open on his lap. He was an artist, always doodling ideas for murals he'd never paint, too afraid of what Willow Creek would think. "Hey," I said, sitting beside him. He looked up, his smile softer than yesterday, but still not right. "Hey, Luke, you're late." Before I could respond, the gate creaked again. "Caleb." He strode in like he owned the place, this time in a crisp white shirt and sunglasses perched on his head. "Back again." "Huh," he called out, his voice carrying over the kids' laughter. Ethan's pencil froze on the page. I wanted to scream at Caleb to leave, but I just clenched my fists and stayed silent. Caleb didn't swim this time. Instead, he sat near us, pulling out a laptop and typing with a focus that felt performative. Every so often, he'd glance at Ethan, like he was studying him. "You're an artist?" Caleb asked, nodding at the sketchbook. Ethan hesitated, then showed him a drawing of vibrant cityscape, all sharp lines and bold colors. "That's incredible," Caleb said, his tone almost too sincere. "You ever think about selling your work? I know people in New York City who'd eat this up." Ethan's face lit up, and my chest tightened. New York City. The place Ethan had always dreamed of. The place I'd never fit into. I was happy designing logos for local businesses. But Ethan, he was meant for something bigger. Caleb was offering him a glimpse of it, and I hated him for it. The afternoon passed in a blur of tension. Caleb kept finding ways to pull Ethan into conversation: art, travel, dreams. I tried to join in, but my words felt flat, like I was intruding on their world. By the time we left, Ethan was buzzing with excitement, talking about galleries and opportunities. He says he could introduce me to some people, Ethan told me as we walked home. Real art dealers. "Luke, can you imagine?" I forced a smile. "Yeah, that's great." But it wasn't. Caleb was moving too fast, too smooth, like a predator circling. That night, I couldn't sleep, my mind racing with worst-case scenarios. What if Ethan left for New York? What if Caleb was more than just a smooth talker? I Googled his name, but nothing came up, just a vague LinkedIn profile with no photo and a job title that sounded made up: creative consultant. Who was this guy? The next day at the pool, Caleb was there again, this time with a gift, a sleek sketchbook, leather-bound, the kind Ethan could never afford. "Thought you'd like this," Caleb said, handing it over with a smile that made my skin crawl. Ethan's eyes widened, and he thanked Caleb profusely, clutching the sketchbook like it was a lifeline. I wanted to rip it out of his hands. As the week went on, Caleb's presence became a constant. He was charming, generous, always saying the right thing to make Ethan light up. But there was something cold in his eyes, something that told me he wasn't here by chance. I started noticing little things: how he'd ask about Ethan's family, his past, his fears, like he was building a dossier. Once, I caught him watching Ethan swim with an intensity that wasn't admiration. It was hunger. I tried to talk to Ethan about it, but he brushed me off. "He's just being nice." "Luke, you're paranoid." But I wasn't. I knew what obsession looked like. I saw it in my own reflection every time I looked at Ethan. By Friday, I couldn't take it anymore. I had to tell him how I felt. Caleb be damned. That evening, as we sat by the pool, the sunset painting the sky in pinks and oranges, I took a deep breath. Ethan, there's something I need to say. He turned to me, his eyes searching mine. What's up? He asked, his voice soft. My heart pounded, the words on the tip of my tongue. But before I could speak, Caleb's shadow fell over us. Mind if I join you? He asked, his voice cutting through the moment like a blade. Ethan smiled and nodded. And just like that, my chance was gone. The summer heat was suffocating, but the real pressure was in my chest. A tight knot of fear and longing that grew heavier every day. Ethan was slipping away, pulled by Caleb's promises of a bigger world. And I was running out of time to tell him the truth. I'd spent years hiding my feelings, terrified of losing him. But now I was losing him anyway to a stranger who seemed to know exactly how to unravel our bond. Saturday morning, I arrived at the pool early, determined to get Ethan alone. He was already there, sketching in the leather-bound book Caleb had given him. Luke, check this out, he said, showing me a drawing of a city skyline at night, vibrant and alive. It was beautiful, but it hurt to look at. It wasn't Willow Creek. It was Caleb's world. Before I could say anything, Caleb arrived, this time with a friendo wiry guy named Marcus, who had the same polished vibe, but none of Caleb's charm. Marcus barely acknowledged me, his focus on Ethan, asking about his art with a clinical interest that set my nerves on edge. Caleb says you're the real deal, Marcus said, his voice flat. Ethan blushed, and I wanted to scream. The day took a darker turn when Caleb suggested we all grab dinner at a diner nearby. Ethan agreed before I could protest, and soon we were crammed into a booth. Caleb and Marcus on one side, Ethan and me on the other. The conversation was dominated by Caleb, who talked about art galleries, investors, and a project he wanted Ethan to be part of. It's a chance to get your name out there, Caleb said, his hand brushing Ethan's arm. I gripped my soda so hard the can dented. Marcus watched me, his eyes narrowing like he could see right through me. You're quiet, Lucas, he said, his tone almost mocking. Not into the art scene. I forced a laugh. Just here for the fries, I said, but my voice was tight. Ethan didn't notice he was too caught up in Caleb's promises. That night, I couldn't hold back anymore. After dinner, as Ethan and I walked home, I grabbed his arm. Ethan, we need to talk. He stopped, surprised by the urgency in my voice. What's wrong? He asked. I took a shaky breath, my heart hammering. I don't trust Caleb. Or Marcus. They're off. And I hesitated, the words catching in my throat. I love you, Ethan. I've always loved you. The world stopped. Ethan's eyes widened, his mouth parting slightly. For a moment, I thought he'd say it back, that he'd been waiting for me to say it all along. But then his face softened into something like pity. Luke, I didn't know you felt that way, he said, his voice gentle but distant. You're my best friend. I don't want to lose that. My heart shattered, but I nodded, swallowing the pain. Yeah. Okay. We walked the rest of the way in silence, the space between us wider than ever. I'd bared my soul, and it wasn't enough. Worse, I knew Caleb was still out there, circling like a vulture. The next day, Caleb showed up at the pool with an offer that changed everything. I'm hosting an art showcase in the city next month, he told Ethan, his voice dripping with excitement. I want you to be the featured artist. Full funding, full exposure. You in? Ethan's eyes lit up, brighter than I'd ever seen them. Are you serious? He asked, already nodding. I'm in. I wanted to be happy for him, but my gut screamed that this was wrong. Caleb's smile was too perfect, his offer too good. That night, I did more digging. A reverse image search of Caleb's face led me to a news article from 2 years ago, a scandal about a creative consultant who'd scammed young artists, promising fame and delivering nothing but debt and broken dreams. The photo was grainy, but it was him. Caleb wasn't here to help Ethan. He was here to destroy him. I couldn't let Caleb ruin Ethan. Not after everything we'd been through. Not after I'd finally told him how I felt, even if he didn't feel the same. The article I'd found was a warning, a ticking clock, and I had to act fast. But confronting Caleb directly was too risky. He was too smooth, too convincing. I needed proof, and I needed Ethan to see it for himself. Monday morning, I went to the pool with a plan. Ethan was there, sketching again, his focus on the leather hawk Sinvine page, his new sketchbook filled with ideas Caleb had inspired. "Luke, you okay?" he asked, noticing my tense expression. I nodded, forcing a smile, but my mind was racing. I had to find a way to expose Caleb without pushing Ethan further away. Caleb arrived soon after, alone this time, his smile as predatory as ever. He sat near us, pulling out his laptop like it was a prop, working on something big. I asked, my voice sharper than I intended. He raised an eyebrow but didn't take the bait. "Just keeping busy," he said, his eyes on Ethan. I spent the day watching Caleb, looking for cracks in his facade. He was careful, but I noticed how he avoided the lifeguard's questions, how he deflected when anyone asked about his past. During a break, I pretended to head to the bathroom but slipped around to his bag, left unattended by his chair. My hands shook as I rifled through it, finding a burner phone and a notebook filled with names, dates, and dollar amounts. It wasn't hard proof, but it was enough to confirm my suspicions. Caleb was running a game, and Ethan was the target. Back at the bench, I pulled Ethan aside. "We need to talk about Caleb," I said, keeping my voice low. Ethan frowned, already defensive. "Not this again, Luke. He's helping me." I took a deep breath, showing him a screenshot of the article on my phone. "He's not who he says he is. Read this." Ethan's face paled as he read, but then he shook his head. "This could be anyone. You're just jealous, aren't you?" His words cut deep, but I pressed on. "Ethan, he's done this before. He scams artists, takes their money, their work. I found a notebook in his bag, your name's in it, with numbers next to it. He's planning something." Ethan's eyes flickered with doubt, but before he could respond, Caleb walked over. "Everything okay?" he asked, his tone too casual. I stood my ground. "We're fine," I said, staring him down. Caleb's smile didn't waver, but his eyes darkened. He knew I was onto him. That night, I went to Ethan's house, determined to make him listen. I showed him everything: the article, the notebook photos I'd snapped, even a forum post from another victim. Ethan's hands trembled as he read, his dreams crumbling. "Why didn't you tell me sooner?" he whispered, his voice breaking. I wanted to hold him, to tell him I'd do anything to protect him. But I just said, "I tried. I didn't want to lose you." Ethan looked at me, his eyes wet. "I'm sorry, Luke. About yesterday, I didn't mean to hurt you. I don't know what I feel." My heart ached, but I nodded. "It's okay. Just don't trust Caleb. Please." The next day, we set a trap. Ethan invited Caleb to the pool, acting excited about the showcase. I hid nearby, recording their conversation. Caleb let his guard down, talking about investors who needed Ethan to pay an upfront fee for the event. Ethan played along, asking pointed questions until Caleb slipped, admitting he'd keep a cut of the money. Got him. The recording was gold-clear evidence of Caleb's scam. But victory felt hollow as Ethan sat beside me, staring at the pool, his dreams shattered. "I believed him," he said, his voice barely a whisper. "I thought he saw something in me. I wanted to tell him he was enough, that he didn't need Caleb's lies. But I just sat there, letting him process. We turned the recording over to the police, who confirmed Caleb was a known con artist. He was arrested the next day, his charm useless against hard evidence. Marcus vanished, likely tipped off, but it didn't matter. Caleb was done. The pool felt lighter without him, but the space between Ethan and me was still heavy with unspoken words. Days later, Ethan asked me to meet him at the pool at sunset. The air was cool, the water still, and for the first time in weeks, it was just us. "Luke," he said, his voice shaky, "I've been thinking about what you said. About loving me." My heart stopped. I don't know if I'm ready to say it back. He continued, looking away. "But I feel something. I'm just scared." I took his hand, my own trembling. "I'm scared too," I admitted. "But I'd rather be scared with you than lose you." His eyes met mine, and for the first time, I saw a spark of hope. He didn't pull away. Instead, he squeezed my hand, a small gesture that felt like a promise. Over the next few weeks, Ethan threw himself into his art, not for fame, but for himself. He started selling prints online, building a small but loyal following. I helped him with the website, and every moment we spent together felt like a step toward something new. We didn't rush it to our friendship was too precious to risk, but every shared glance, every brush of hands, carried a weight that made my heart race. One evening, as we sat by the pool, Ethan leaned against me, his head on my shoulder. "I'm glad you didn't give up on me," he said softly. I smiled, my throat tight. "Never will," I said. The sun sank below the horizon, and for the first time, I felt like we were at the beginning of something real. The pool, once a place of tension and fear, became our sanctuary. We'd faced a storm: jealousy, betrayal, doubt, and come out stronger. Ethan's art flourished, and so did our bond, fragile but growing. Caleb had tried to tear us apart, but he'd only shown us what mattered most: each other. As the stars appeared, I knew that whatever came next, we'd face it together, one honest step at a time.